Hello and welcome back to So You Got a Life Sci Degree. We're your hosts, Farida and Lisa, two life sci undergrad students trying to navigate our future careers. This is episode 16, and we're talking to Alastair Tracey about being an undergraduate coordinator in the Department of Biology at McMaster University. How are you doing today, Lisa?
I'm doing good. I got a good night of sleep last night, which is a bit unusual for an insomniac. And I also have follow-up. So in our last episode, our special half-birthday episode, number 15, at one point we talked about who would be more likely to go bungee jumping, and we both talked about how neither of us are likely. And I don't remember what conclusion we came to, but anyways, bungee jumping is scary. And literally the next day, I was on my Instagram feed, and I see this photo that Alex Honnold, the famous rock climber, posted. That's just him on a climb, but just to chill out between working on the climb. He's literally just swinging from his climbing rope from the wall and back.
Oh wow. Wait,
Yeah.
let me take a look at this post. Oh my god.
And we're like, yeah, we don't know if we really be down to and he's like, alrighty, let's go. Yeah.
Wow, this is like swinging but on a whole other level. Also, how does he come back? What if he can't reach the wall afterwards?
Well, maybe he's still out there.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. In other news, I have a really exciting life update.
Yes. What is it?
And I've been not telling you this because I've been wanting to tell you it on the podcast. So we have a mutual friend who I will not name by name, but they go to Waterloo and they're in mechatronics. And so I've mentioned before that I have some physical health conditions that make it so that I can't do certain things. So one of those things is pressing down on the sustain pedal on the piano. So when you play, your right foot, you press down on the pedal, and it's really important for some songs. It just sounds, for most songs, it sounds really bad without it.
Yeah.
I can't do that. And so what I started doing a couple years ago was I was like, wait, I can do a semi solution to this. And so we have two 10-pound weights at home. And so what I do is I kind of just position them on top of the pedal. So I don't think I get the full 20 pounds of force, but a decent amount of weight. It just keeps it down, and then I play.
Oh, nice.
But I'm moving to Hamilton soon, and so I was thinking I want to be able to play the pianos around campus, and just in general, I want to be able to play pianos without lugging around two 10-pound weights with me. It's not very practical. And so I was like, wait, I can work with someone. I can hire someone to design a piano pedal clamp for me.
Ooh.
So it's not a perfect solution, because in an ideal world, if I was going all out, I would be able to I don't know, click my tongue to change the pedal every 4 seconds or something. But semi solutions are also great solutions.
Of course.
Yeah. And so I ran it by this friend, and they were like, yeah, I think I could take a shot at that. And so for the past, I think, month or so, we've been kind of going back and forth and working on a design for this piano pedal clamp together.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
Yeah, I know. I've been sketching diagrams, I've been taking measurements, I've been getting splinters from sticking my finger on the underside of the piano where the manufacturer obviously didn't intend you to put your finger.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really cool. We've decided that it's probably going to be 3D printed. And I think he's working on a prototype right now, and yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, I've been wondering about this so much, because you told me you and this friend are working on some kind of secret project that you're going to tell me about later. Yeah, I had no idea what it could be, because I feel like your realm of interests besides space don't overlap that much. So I was like,
Lisa and computer and engineering.
Exactly. I was like, I have no idea what this could be.
Yeah. Also, 3D printing is shockingly cheap.
Yeah.
They said that they were going to print a prototype, and I was like, oh, how much is it going to be? I just wanted to know, because I don't want to print a prototype if it's going to be $10. But he did the calculations for me. It was something 62 cents. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where the initial cost to set up a 3D printer is a lot, but then definitely. Each print is a lot less.
Yeah. No, they own a 3D printer, which I did not know, but that really makes things easy.
Yeah.
So yeah, really exciting.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Show me all your plans after, now that I know what the project is.
Yeah. What about you? You recently had dental adventures.
Yeah, so I got my wisdom teeth out about 2 weeks ago.
She's less wise.
Yeah, also they were huge. I was like, I can't believe they fit in my mouth.
Yo, teeth are scary. You don't think about we only see the top of the tooth.
Yeah.
It goes down all the way into your gum. It's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, as the surgeon was taking them out, he's like, whoa, these are really big. You must be really wise. I was
oh my goodness.
God.
If you're wondering, like, why was Frida able to hear that during her surgery, it's because she was conscious.
Yeah.
Most people aren't, but she was.
I decided to get the smallest amount of anesthesia, so it's like just local.
Small. That's such a weird way of phrasing it.
The lowest dose.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. They said there was 3 levels, and so the second one is the one that makes you kind of like loopy, and like people make videos about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I got the one that's even less. I could smell and hear everything, but it was honestly fine.
I think I might have talked about this before, but I had 3 dental surgeries like in the past year, for like gum surgeries. And when I booked my first one, I was initially like, oh, of course I want to be like knocked out completely. But in the weeks leading up to the surgery, I have this fear of like being unconscious or just like not being present. And so I started to realize I was legitimately more anxious about the anesthesia than the actual surgery. And then I called them and I was like, can we just like not do the anesthesia? They were like, yeah, sure. And I was like, oh, okay. And then my anxiety immediately dissipated.
Oh, man.
I was like, I am ready for you to rip out my gums.
Yeah, I think there's a CGP Grey video about this where he's talking about transporters in Star Trek. And he's like, like the only way they can work is by like basically killing your current body and then recreating it again. And you don't know that doesn't happen when you go unconscious. It's terrifying.
I mean, without giving away too many spoilers, if you're into that kind of thing, the movie called The Prestige by Christopher Nolan is a really good movie, and it's a really underrated movie of his.
Yeah,
so would recommend.
Yeah. So, Lisa, what's the squirrel of the week?
The squirrel of the week is Family Squirrel.
Ooh, what is Family Squirrel?
Family Squirrel is okay. Listen, I have to ask you something, and this is kind of like an ask for forgiveness instead of ask for permission.
Oh no! What did you do?
So what's the line with squirrels, Rita? Like, I know that it's like a squirrel of the week, but can we have like a group of, is this like the Nobel Prize where there can only be maximum 3 squirrels collectively that get the squirrel of the week, or can it be like a whole collection of squirrels? Because so I was walking back from the pharmacy through this kind of like wooded area, and then I kind of just see like these 3 squirrels dart across the asphalt path, and it was really cute, and one of them looked considerably smaller than the others, so I was like, oh my goodness, could it be a baby? And then I watched them scamper over the fence, and then being the squirrel enthusiast I am, I looked at them like kind of like where they went, and they started running around this giant tree, and I was like, okay. And then as I watch, there's like 3 or 4 other squirrels that emerge and start like clambering around the tree with them. And then so I walk closer to the fence to take a look, and then there was definitely more than 10. It was like a dozen squirrels.
What was happening?
I don't know. They were going crazy. Like there was this fallen log on the ground that was kind of hollow, and they were going like in and out of the log. Like they were going inside the log, over the log, down again. They were going absolutely crazy. I don't know what was up.
I think there was a squirrel town hall or something.
Oh my goodness, that's so cute. I love that idea. Yeah, and so I was just like staring, and I was just standing there watching all these little squirrels, and something occurs to me that I'm standing like right in the middle of the path, and so I look to my left to see if there's anyone coming up that I need to move out of the way for, and I look, and a few meters away from me is this elderly man who's also standing there just looking at the squirrels.
Lisa in 30 years.
Like, yeah, me, I will be an elderly man in 30 years.
Close enough.
Yeah.
That's very funny. This feels like that moment in Rick and Morty when Morty can hear the squirrels and they're just like planning the future of humanity.
Yeah. We don't know what went on at that town hall. We don't speak of it.
Yeah, exactly. Very nice. All right, are you ready to interview with Alastair?
I am so absolutely ready to interview Alastair. This podcast is sponsored by Kickin' Back Alpaca Ranch. Kickin' Back Alpaca Ranch is an alpaca farm near Collingwood, Ontario that's run by Carolyn and Doug Lillyman. They raise beautiful alpacas, offer close-up alpaca tours, and create wonderful products from alpaca fiber. At the moment, all their tours are in small groups and last between 45 and 90 minutes. During this time, you'll get the chance to pet the alpacas, feed them treats, and take lots of photos. You even get to learn all sorts of interesting facts about the species, like why they don't like it when you touch their heads. Plus, after the tour, you get to visit their store and check out some cute alpaca products. I was surprised to see the range of items they offer, including socks, dryer balls, and get this, alpaca plushies made using real alpaca fiber. I myself have visited their ranch this past summer. My favorite part of my tour was without a doubt seeing all the cute baby alpacas, who are also known as crias. They're just so adorable. My favorite Kriya was Pipsqueak, who is a small, fluffy white alpaca. But lately, I think I'm taking a real liking to Paisley, who is a young alpaca that looks like she always has a tiny smile on her face. It's especially fun getting to feed them treats. The feeling of their mouths nibbling against your palms is just such a delight. Kickenback Alpaca Ranch is open year-round and are currently following all government protocols regarding COVID-19. You can book a tour at www.alpacatours.ca. Their alpaca products are also available for purchase online at www.laslyn.com, that's LASLYN.com, or at the link in the show notes. You can also follow them on social media at the links in the show notes for cute alpaca photos. But most importantly, book a tour and pay those cute alpacas a visit. This week's guest is Alastair Tracey. Alastair is a Level II Undergraduate Coordinator in the Department of Biology at McMaster University. He has been at McMaster for the past 12 years. In 2020, he was awarded the McMaster President's Award for Outstanding Contributions to Teaching and Learning for Innovative Teaching Methods in Biology 1A03, a first-year cellular and molecular biology course. He's also received the highest honor of all, multiple Reddit posts from students affirming that he is a lovely human being. Thank you for joining us today, Alastair. So, the first question that we have for you is if you could just let us know, what does it mean to be an undergraduate coordinator at McMaster? What is your job?
So my job is dealing with a lot of the student interaction, for starters. So I feel like the most important aspect of my job is doing my best to ensure that the students have sort of a positive learning experience. I'm kind of the face of a lot of the courses, I guess, where the students will come to me with questions and with their problems, and hopefully I can rectify things for them. I do a lot of the administrative work for the courses, such as the work related to the learning management system, which McMaster University is Avenue to Learn, calculating student grades, answering lots of student inquiries, and also a lot of course development too. So whether that's developing documents for the course, such as the course outlines, or doing curriculum development for the labs or the tutorials, sometimes evaluations and things like that, and from time to time even lecture content. So my job, I do a lot of things behind the scenes that students probably don't see, but my position I think is primarily student centric, and I'm really here for the students.
Mm-hmm. And so your job title is that you are the Level II Undergraduate Coordinator. So if my understanding is correct, McMaster, the biology department, has 4 undergraduate coordinators, one for each level. Do you want to just tell us a bit about, are you involved in all the courses in Level II? Do you also work with some of the other coordinators, that kind of thing?
So in the Department of Biology at McMaster University, there are 3 undergraduate coordinators. Actually, one for Level 1, one for Level 2, and one for Level 3. And that's how our duties are kind of broken up. We're assigned essentially to the corresponding course level. So as you mentioned, I'm the Level 2 coordinator, so I coordinate almost all of the Level 2 courses. We generally are associated with the larger enrollment courses. So if it's a lower enrollment course in the department, sometimes we don't have an association with that course where we're the course coordinator. Prior to being the Level 2 coordinator, I was the first year coordinator for 10 years. So I do still work within the first year courses. I guess it's almost like in a consulting position in a sense. I don't, like the students don't really see me or know me so much anymore, but I'm still part of the instructional team from the perspective of developing some content and helping with decision making and direction for the courses, especially when it comes to course revisions and refinements and things like that. So I still answering questions, and I still do a lot of stuff. Last summer, even though I wasn't officially part of the instructional team, when we pivoted to the online delivery of the labs for Biology 1A03, I rewrote the entire lab manual pretty much to design it for virtual delivery as opposed to what the students were doing in person. So that was a lot of work. And although, as you said, like I'm kind of the Level 2 person, I'm still working a lot with Level 1 and a little bit here and there with Level 3. I do work a lot, certainly with the other coordinators, the Level 1 and the Level 3 coordinators. Usually we're just helping each other out when we can, especially if we have knowledge or experience with the other courses. And we kind of bounce ideas off each other. And a lot of times you're curious as to what's going on in the other courses, or how a certain situation is being dealt with, or if certain content's being taught where we should expect that students kind of know this coming into our courses or things like that. So there is a lot of discussion between the 3 of us, and we do work, I think, quite well as a team.
Could you tell us what kind of an average day of work looks like to you? Let's say before the pandemic hit, just kind of like what time would you arrive at work? What would be the things that you're doing throughout the day? Lunch break kind of thing, leave work time, that sort of thing.
I don't live very close to campus, so my start of my work day, if you're looking for like a time that I start at, that varies. I'm about a 50-minute commute from campus. So
Yikes.
if the weather's bad or traffic's bad or there's an accident on one of the major highways, it takes a little longer. So, but it also, I have two young children, so I get them off to school and then I head to work. So I'd say my day starts around 9 o'clock on average. And usually, depending on what's going on that particular day, I always like to sort of make myself available to the students while they're in lab or tutorial. I might kind of check in and just see how things are going and have a chat with the teaching assistant just to see if everything's running smoothly. I'm not really checking up on the teaching assistant, like not at all. And I tell them that. I say, if you see me pop in, it's just something that I've always done over the years. And a lot of the times when students see me come in, they'll kind of flag me and say, hey, can I ask you a question? Or I sent you an email yesterday and I know you're really busy, so I'd rather ask you now in person because your email reply might be delayed a couple of days, right? So I like to sort of check in on what's going on at the time when I arrive. After that, it's oddly a very complex job, like from behind the scenes, and students don't really realize it. It could be completing emails, applying to student correspondence, and making sure they get answers to their questions. That's a good chunk of my day. Certainly, when we're on campus, my office is like a throughway. I have office hours, generally every day. I would dedicate like an hour. It's usually around lunchtime, the lunch hour, and that was sort of my dedicated office hour time if I was available or if I didn't have a meeting or if I wasn't like a committee meeting or something like that. But I had always told students, if you're passing by and if you can't come during my office hour, just stop by. And if my door's open, my office door's open, just come in. So when we're on campus, my office is often populated with students dropping by to ask questions and things like that. So that's a lot of my day, and that's great because that's, as I said, that's kind of what I'm at the university for in a lot of ways. And then, scrambling sometimes to get things ready for the upcoming week, such as, the labs and the assignments and evaluations and getting student grades ready and getting tests marked and organizing the teaching assistants is a huge part of the job. I've tried to schedule things so that there's at least one day of the week that there aren't labs and tutorials running, and that generally turns out to be a Monday if I can. And Mondays are at the start of the week, and sometimes I think people want to start off the week maybe a little bit slower than the other days. Mondays are my busiest day because I will schedule all of my teaching assistant meetings that week to get the TAs ready for the upcoming week, whatever's coming up. So, and sometimes it's multiple meetings per day, depending on how many courses there are, depending on schedules. There was one year where I had 6 TA meetings in a day. So that was 6 hours out of my day on a Monday that was gone. So lunch, I try to catch lunch when I can. I wouldn't say there's a dedicated time each day that I eat my lunch. I don't sit down at 11:30 or 12 o'clock. If I do, it's just because I can sneak it in then. Sometimes it's later in the afternoon. Sometimes there was a time I remember when I was still the first year coordinator, I realized after a little bit of reflection that it had been 3 weeks since I'd taken a lunch break. And, it's really just kind of grabbing a bite to eat in my office quickly as I'm working as opposed to like a dedicated time. So it's pretty busy. And, there was a time a few years ago, again, when I was the first year coordinator, and I remember hearing from people like, from my colleagues that they were kind of joking around that they were going to send out a search party to come look for me because they hadn't seen me in like 6 weeks because I'm in a separate building from most of them where they work within the Department of Biology. So I was in the Burke Science Building, and most of the biology related things happen in the Life Sciences Building. So they hadn't seen me in so long because I hadn't been over the other building for any reason. And the joke was that they were going to have to send a daily search party out looking for me to make sure that I was okay. And so it gets a little bit crazy. And then the end of each day is kind of turns into a bit of a scramble to make sure that everything is ready for the following day. So my days are variable. Some days, I'm on campus till 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m. It just really depends on how much I have to do that day and what I know I need to get done to ensure that things are going to run smoothly for the next day for the teaching assistants and the students and the courses in general. I always kind of joked around saying, I need to get these things done so that the train stays on the tracks for the following day. And because if the train falls off the tracks in these big courses, it's kind of tough sometimes to get the train back on the tracks. Things fall apart very quickly.
Yeah, when there's 1,500 students on the train, it's kind of hard to get it get it back running smoothly. I feel like that's one of the things that students don't realize. I think when I was a TA for 1MO3 last fall semester, it kind of gave me some perspective into, wow, like it's a week before classes start and I don't know what tutorial I'm TAing. It's less maybe like official and like all set up than some students may think coming up to like a big institution like McMaster. Definitely a lot of behind the scenes scrambling going on sometimes, especially recently.
Lots of moving parts for sure. And it's very interesting that you say that, because when undergraduate students become teaching assistants, they might have thought back to first year and
Yeah.
they had a chat with me, and we're kind of wondering like what's going on behind the scenes, or why aren't my test grades out? Like I wrote the test like a week ago or something like that. Who's my TA, and why don't I have a discussion forum, or why isn't? And there are so many moving parts. And when a lot of undergrads became TAs and worked with me, I don't really pretend it's working for me, but when they worked with me, and especially for within the first year courses, they were just flabbergasted once they realized like what was going on behind the scenes and how much work it takes to keep things organized. And even though sometimes it feels like it's not, they realize pretty quickly that it could be way crazier, right? So there's a lot of work behind the scenes, and they realize, wow, like I had no idea that this is what my TA had to do, or I had no idea that this is what the course instructors were doing. There's just so many other things. And I've had lots of quite a number of teaching assistants at the end of the term come and talk to me afterwards and say like, we had no idea what was going on when in first year. Like everything now makes so much more sense. It didn't seem like it did then. And I always kind of tell the TAs, I said, like, there is method to the madness. You just have to bear with me. And usually they realize it. And I remember one particular teaching assistant that was actually like a teaching assistant sort of project student that was working with me, and after the fact just came up to me and talked to me and said, I like have so much respect now for what you do. He said, when I was in first year, I used to like talk to my friends and be like, what does that guy even do? Like, does he just sit in his office all day and talk to students? Like, what's that guy doing? And now, after becoming like ingrained with the course from the other side of the desk, I guess the other side of the table, he was just wowed. He couldn't believe how much was going on. And I think what a lot of students also don't realize is the course coordinators are actually responsible for a lot of decision making as well. So being the common face between the three terms, I'm primarily the person that's responsible for keeping as much consistency as I can between the offerings. So lots of things. It's a much more complex job than I think a lot of people realize. And as I said, I think a lot of teaching assistants, whether they were undergrads and now they're a graduate student at McMaster, or if they're undergrads at the time and they're working as an undergraduate teaching assistant, a lot of them, once they see the behind the scenes a little bit more, I think they realize, wow, this is really what was happening in first year, and it just makes so much more sense now.
Right. Yeah, it seems like it's not purely like the administrative side. Like there's also like you are also involved in designing the actual curriculum and the learning and such. And speaking of which, I was wondering if you could you alluded to it briefly when you mentioned your own background, but do you know anything about these positions in general, what the qualifications they're looking for, like knowledge in the subject area, teaching ability? Do you know if like a PhD is like often a requirement? I know it might depend on the subject and the school, but yeah, just a bit about that.
So a PhD, I don't think would be required from the perspective of, if you were looking at the job application, if it was posted, I don't think you would see, a PhD as a requirement. When I applied, I believe a master's degree was the minimum education level. And that's what I've kind of seen when positions have been posted recently, like whether it's in the Department of Biology or chemistry. There's a little bit of movement once in a while. People might go on parental leaves or something like that. They need to hire somebody to cover a parental leave or something like that. And there's a little bit of movement, retirement, things like that. That's actually why I moved into the second year level courses. Was there was a retirement in the Department of Biology, and it was just kind of decided that I would shift into the second year level courses from the first year level courses when that retirement happened. So a lot of these positions are, I believe, looking for a graduate degree, likely discipline specific, and they would probably be looking for somebody that has a little bit of teaching and learning experience, or a teaching and learning background as well, with maybe some experience with teaching or some experience with developing curriculum and things like that. That would probably, I believe, be a lot of sort of the boxes that they would like to have checked off in somebody that was going to be hired for the position, I think.
And speaking of teaching and learning, based on your experiences, how would you say that you think that teaching and learning, in universities in general, has evolved over the past several years? And like, where do you think it's headed in the future, if there's anything that's changing?
So being at the university for 12 years, it's been a while since I was an undergraduate student, but even 12 years ago, things were a lot closer to my experience as an undergraduate student than they are now, for sure. So 12 years ago, educational technologies were not being used as widespreadly, and blended learning and things like that were sort of in their infancy. I remember realizing this just a couple of years ago. I was in a lecture, and then I was leaving the lecture hall halfway through, and I'm at the back of this large lecture hall, and all you could hear, it was like tap 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 tap. It was like a symphony.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, no, it's absolutely insane. You know when the professor just said something important because suddenly, like the tapping, it intensifies.
It was crazy. I hadn't really heard it in a large lecture hall in the back, and this was again a couple of years ago. So I think students that sit at the back of the lecture hall probably hear it all the time. They're used to it, and I can't imagine if you're sitting at the front, just based upon the acoustics in the room, that you hear it, that it's as loud and it's prominent. It was like this symphony. It was really loud. Like I just thought, I looked around and went, wow, like that is the sound of students, tapping on their keyboards. And I mean, it's pretty obvious. 500 students, pretty obvious what the sound is, where the sound's coming from. But even thinking back to about 12 years ago, not every student had a laptop during lecture.
Right.
I don't have any data to back it up, but being in the lectures and just looking around, I would estimate it was less than half, probably like maybe like 40%, 30 to 40% of students even 12 years ago came to lecture with a laptop in hand, and now it's got to be 90% plus for sure. And so I mean, you wouldn't have heard that sound echoing at the back of the lecture hall even 12 years ago. So that's a small thing. Is I think students are becoming more dependent on their own personal technology, whether it's their computer or their phone. And I think that's changed even in the last few years, or certainly in the last decade for sure. And then just trends in education are changing, and blended learning is a big thing. Some students, I think, like it. Some students don't. Develop blended learning being the delivery of a course with face-to-face interactions, and also giving the students some sort of technology to do some learning on their own. So at McMaster, a lot of this is through face-to-face lectures, but also online modules, we call them, like basically online lectures. It's one model of blended learning. But I think, especially with what's going on right now with the pandemic, everything's shifting fully virtually. I don't know that we're going to go back to full in-person classes with these massive numbers of students sitting in lecture halls together until there's some level of vaccination in the general population. So I think blended learning is kind of something that's here to stay. If it wasn't already here to stay, it's probably even going to be more prevalent in a lot of the courses in the upcoming terms until the community and the universities is more comfortable with students being back on campus. So I don't have any answers, and I don't know what's going to happen in September. But I don't think we're going to see 600 students sitting in a lecture hall together for a long time.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
So I think just trending towards things in education, just more use of technology and using different tools and things like that. I think that's going to continue. So hopefully they're beneficial to students. I hate when technology gets implemented just because it's kind of trendy, or there's not a lot of data or a lot of evidence that it's actually beneficial. It's just like, oh, this is kind of cool. Let's try it out and see what happens. And I'm not a big fan of that. I like when things have some data to back it up. And it's not just a sales pitch from a company, a sales rep, and a lot of the times this stuff might work one place, but it doesn't work at another school. So maybe they're trying to sell you something, or they want you to use something that was used in a class of 30 at a smaller university, and this worked out great, and the students loved it, and that might work well for a class of 30, but it might not work well for a class of 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever it is. So
you don't want 1,500 guinea pigs.
Yeah, so I as much as technology is great for education, and the research does show that blended learning is beneficial for students from a lot of perspectives. Teaching and for learning, and even their grades are generally better. But implementing things just for the sake of implementing them, I'm not a big fan of that. So.
So you mentioned new learning strategies, and so is researching these things, like looking into studies on them or keeping up with up and coming, like education tools, is that also part of your job? And if so, how often do you do that?
It's part of my job. I would say I probably do that a lot more when the wheels start turning and there's discussions start to begin about major course revisions, perhaps. So if there's talk of it's time to develop a brand new suite of labs for a course or a brand new suite of tutorials, or this course was a traditionally taught course, it was all face-to-face lectures, and we're going to change to a blended learning model. That's when I probably certainly look into that a lot more, but I do keep up on the research as much as I can when I have time to do so. It's all a bit of a time crunch for me. I don't set aside an hour of my day or a few hours a week for that sort of stuff. But even when things aren't being completely overhauled, and maybe students don't realize this on the other side, is even term to term to term, I was always making small tweaks or small revisions, and a lot of the time it was related to student feedback, the end of term surveys. Students probably don't believe it, but I read every single comment, every single one. Some of them are practical and can be implemented, and some are crazy, like, I hate Friday night tests. No more Friday night tests. Well, there's actually, as I was kind of mentioning earlier, there's method to the madness, and there's actually a reason why the tests are Friday nights. But in first year courses in particular at McMaster, some of the science courses have Friday night tests, which first year chemistry course, my first year chemistry tests were
Ooh,
8 a.m. Saturday mornings, so those weren't fun.
Ooh.
But yeah, I do try to keep up with that stuff, especially when needed. So.
And just a follow-up question, partly for my own curiosity, do you know when they started using Avenue at McMaster or just in universities in general? Because I cannot imagine being in university in such a huge class and not having Avenue.
So Avenue in particular, it's actually a company actually that provides Avenue to Learn, which is McMaster's learning management system, or Master's LMS, is called Desire to Learn, which is actually a Canadian company. And I think they've actually recently changed their name again. I just can't remember what the name change is offhand. So Avenue to Learn, I think, has been used at McMaster since 2013, perhaps.
Oh, did they have something before that?
Yeah, so there were other systems before that. There was a system that lasted for about a year prior to Avenue to Learn, or prior to the Desire to Learn product. It lasted for, I think, a year. It crashed like crazy.
Oh no, those poor students.
I remember being in lecture, first day of class, with the Biology 1M03 students. It was 8:30 in the morning, first day of the term, so it was for a lot of them, their first university class. And I decided to show them, our learning management system, and try to show them where they'd be able to locate things. Just give them a little tour of, hey, when you're looking for your lecture notes, this is where you'll find it. This is where you'll find your lab notes, and make sure you keep with the announcements. A lot of the stuff that I kind of related to students in first year when I first meet them, and it wouldn't load, and it wouldn't load, and it wouldn't load, and nothing happened. And I thought, oh, this is trouble. And it's so super embarrassing because it's their first day of university for a lot of them, first lecture, and I'm standing up there. It was embarrassing. Like, what can I say? And I think I just said, listen, I don't know what's going on. You'll need to just keep in touch with me. And the number of emails that I got that term without having a learning management system up and running, because it didn't work for about 6 to 8 weeks. And then they thought they'd fixed it, and then it crashed again in January for about 4 weeks. So anyways, that one was only about a year. And prior to that, there was another one called WebCT, which I think had been around for a while. And that was the one that was at the university when I started. So that one even predates me. So learning management systems have been for probably close to 20 years now. I did not have learning management systems when I was an undergrad.
We're kind of like reaching the end of the interviews. So one more question that we wanted to ask you was, what did you wish that you had known before becoming an undergraduate coordinator at Mac, if anything?
It's a good question. Yeah, I think I haven't really encountered anything where I thought to myself, I didn't sign up for this, or I don't want this to be part of my job. I think the most difficult part of my job is probably academic integrity. I deal with a lot of the academic integrity issues within the courses, which is kind of another layer of responsibility as part of the job. So I think that's probably the most difficult part of my job. As I said, I don't think there's any aspect of my job that I think to myself, I wish I didn't have to do this. Academic integrity is the least favorite part of my job, the least enjoyable part of my job. I'm not going to, by far, and I hate it, but I have to, it's part of the job, and I have to take it seriously, and it's part of the expectations of the university, right? So that's that. I think probably prior to being in the position, I probably didn't realize how many different things are going on, and how many hats you have to wear: an administrator, a supervisor, a teacher, a learner, a mentor, all these things. I don't think I realized how diverse the job was and how important it was to so many students, and how integral, doing a good job in the position I think is. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm perfect and everything's perfect, but I have worked very, very hard over the years and try my best to give the students a really positive and enjoyable first year experience in particular, and hopefully second year experience now. So I think just going in, I think if I had if I had more knowledge of how many different things go on in the job, that probably would have helped me get started. But I've had great people to work with, and had a few mentors myself. I've needed help over the years with things too. So I think that's probably it.
It's very sweet. And lastly, just for fun, do you have any funny stories of something a student has done or tried to get away with, or a mistake you've made, or just something funny that has happened while you've been working at McMaster?
I have lots and lots of stories, certainly.
I know there's been many PIA professor events that you have been a part of.
I've been PI'd a couple of times, or a few times now, at a PIA professor event. Last year's event was interesting because the student really took a good swing at me.
Yeah, you told me about that.
And I actually thought my nose was broken.
Oh, goodness.
Which would be a second time. So, and I thought, wow, that was interesting.
A second time in your life, or a second time?
Second time in my life, yeah, no.
Oh, okay, okay.
No, not from a PI, no.
You would think you would learn after the first PI and not do it anymore.
No, it was the first time I was playing soccer. So, but yes, that was that was a fun one. I think students enjoyed seeing that. I'm trying to think. There was a student years ago. It's been a few years since he graduated now, and he used to come to my office quite a lot. So just to come in, he would just come in and stop and sit down and just chat. Like it wasn't course related. It wasn't university related. He would just come in and sit down and be like, "Hey, how's it going? What's going on? How's your day going?" And he would just chat to me like we were buddies, and that's fine.
Aww.
Obviously, there's a line that has to be drawn sometimes, but it was a lot of fun. So he comes into my office one time and he sits down and he looks at me and he just says, I can't tell you. And I said, come on, you can't do that to me. He says, you can't imagine what is written about you on one of the bathroom stall walls.
Oh my goodness.
I said, come on, you have to tell me. Like, you can't say that and not follow through. He said, I can't tell you. Like, it's so bad. And I said, come on, all right. I said, well, then tell me where it is, and I'll go, I'll go look for it myself. I wasn't overly interested, but he just was like, no, I can't do it. It was very funny because he never told me what it was, and he just kind of left me hanging. And I always think back to that. That student, a great student, a great guy. So
if it makes you feel better, I've never read anything bad about you on any bathroom walls.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's out there somewhere, but that was very, very funny. That's one I'll probably always remember. I'm sure it's been painted over since.
Oh yeah, possibly. Yeah. I will say the graffiti on university bathroom stalls is much better than. Yeah.
That's funny. A little more creative, probably, eh?
Yeah. All right. So that was the interview. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, just thank you for inviting me, and it is the end of March now, and I hope the rest of the term is an enjoyable and a successful one for you, and hope that you and everyone out there that's listening is staying safe, and hopefully we'll all be in person and be able to see each other at some point in the fall, or in the not too distant future.
Hopefully before I graduate.
Yes, we shall see.
Hello, if you've made it all the way here, congratulations! It's time for a review of the podcast. Woo! Frida, what does this week's review say?
This week's review is from Ajian Go. Ajian Go writes, as a life sci major who's confused about my next steps, this podcast is just what I needed. So useful and so interesting. Love, 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 heart emoji.
If you, wonderful listener, would like to leave us a review, you can do so on Apple Podcasts using the link that we put in the show notes. It's just down there. It's real easy access. Feel free to include honest feedback about the podcast. We'd really love to hear it to be able to improve things. And we'll almost definitely read a review on the show as well. This has been another episode of So You Got a Life Sci Degree with Alastair Tracey about being an undergraduate course coordinator. We want to give special thanks to our crew of lovely patrons, including our Little Leaf patrons Naeem, Daniil, Shafiq, and Shamima, and our fantastic foliage patron Stephanie. If you would like to become a supporter of this podcast, you can visit our Patreon at patreon.com/soyougottalifesec. The music you're hearing is No Regrets from audiohub.com. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.